Good evening. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person, but I wanted to express how deeply humbled I am that you have bestowed this amazing honor on me. I accept on behalf of all my colleagues who worked on our film on baseball. I'm a storyteller, so let me tell you a story. Listen. In 1909, a man named Charles Hercules Ebbets began secretly buying up adjacent parcels of land in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn, including the site of a garbage dump called Pigtown because of the pigs that once ate their fill there and the stench that still filled the air. He hoped eventually to build a permanent home for the lackluster baseball team he had once worked for and now owned. The team was called the Trolley Dodgers, or just the Dodgers, after the way their devoted fans negotiated Brooklyn's busy streets. In 1912, construction began. By the time it was completed, Pigtown had been transformed into Ebbets Field, baseball's newest shrine, where some of the game's greatest drama would take place. In the years to come, Dodger fans would see more bad times than good, but hardly care. Listen to the southern cadences of a pioneer broadcaster and witness firsthand baseball's finest moment when a black man wearing the number 42 trotted out to first base. In 1955, after more than 4 decades of frustration, Brooklyn would finally win a world championship, only to know just 2 years later the ultimate heartbreak as their team moved to a new city 3,000 miles away, leaving an empty shell in Flatbush that eventually became an apartment building, and an even emptier spot in the soul of every Brooklyn fan. As the story of the arc of Ebbets Field that opened our series on the national pastime attests, the story of baseball is the story of America. Behind the exquisite play, the thousands of anxious games won and lost, the myriad heroic and not so heroic careers rising and falling, lies a startlingly revealing mirror of our country. Baseball, the poet Donald Hall told us in a filmed interview, because of its continuity over the space of America and the time of America, is a place where memory gathers. It was my intention to pursue the game and its memories and myths across the expanse of American history. We quickly developed an abiding conviction that the game of baseball offered a unique prism through which one could see refracted much more than the history of a simple sport. This is the story of labor and management, those whose great skills make the game so interesting, and those who own the ball and the ballpark. This is a story of immigration and assimilation as each wave of immigrant groups sought the permanent status of citizenship conveyed not by a piece of paper from the State Department, but by participating in the national pastime of their adopted land. This is the story of popular culture and advertising, how myths are made, that is to say, how the country really is and how we would like to see ourselves. This is the story of heroes, and of course, this is, of necessity, the story of villains and fools. This is a story of a restless, expanding, competitive, sentimental nation, a story of the growth and decay and now rebirth of great cities, of the rise of popular media, and the exclusion, I'm sorry to say, so far, of women. And this, of course, is the story of race, central to our larger American narrative, crucial to baseball. When Jackie Robinson walked out onto that ball field in the spring of 1947, his glorious moment was the first real progress in civil rights since the Civil War, making our production, in a way, a sequel, a literal sequel to our Civil War series. And that glorious moment, ladies and gentlemen, occurred not at a lunch counter in North Carolina, not on a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama, not in a school in South Carolina or Topeka, not even in the barracks of our military, but on the diamonds of our so-called national pastime. At that moment, when that proud grandson of a slave made his way to first base at Ebbets Field, his miraculous and heroic example, turning his cheek for 2 years against the thousands of racial slights, threats, and abuse that he would face, would be watched with awe and gratitude by a young junior at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, named Martin Luther King. In a sense, American social history made a profound turn that April afternoon. But Jackie Robinson's epic story is not the whole of it. For decades, African Americans struggled to offset the prejudice in their country and in their national game by creating and managing and owning teams and leagues of separate but athletically equal talent. And when Jackie finally did arrive, when baseball became, in truth, what it had always claimed to be, the national pastime, the struggle did not stop, as it has not stopped in our country at large. Curt Flood and Henry Aaron were ironically forced to confront again and again the pernicious racism that persists in this favored land, as the famous poet Casey at the Bat put it. This favored land, founded as it was almost 250 years ago on the most noble principle yet advanced in humankind, that all men were created equal. It is in this spirit of the possibilities of this republic and the ways baseball has at times reflected the best of us that I gratefully and respectfully accept induction into the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame.